This is the Three Skeevers podcast.
How should I start this? Just this is the Three Skeevers podcast with Grim and myself, Icy. How you doing, Grim? That's it.
Hey, yeah,
This will
yeah.
be the intro. We just botch the whole thing on episode one.
People would be like, "What are these clowns doing?"
Oh man, this is a complete mess. Anyways, we'll just keep trucking along, or if not, we'll just redo the intro so it sounds more polished. Um, so
Yeah.
this is the Three Skeevers podcast with Grim from Grim Forge Gaming and myself, Icy. And what's this podcast going to be about? Mostly Elder Scrolls Online, or anything Elder Scrolls related. I know something that we do want to talk about, once it comes out is Elder Scrolls 6, so that'll be really cool. Um, but anything you want to add to that, Grim, in particular?
No, that's perfect. Let's
Cool.
go.
Alrighty, so since this is just the first podcast of many more to come, we've decided to just talk about one of our favorite things we like to, or where we like to play in Elder Scrolls Online, the Imperial City. So with that, do you want to start it, Grim, with what is your, what is one of the things you like to do in Imperial City?
Yeah, so I spend most of my time down in Imperial City. I guess one of the first things is I like the fact that it's the perfect blend of PvP and PvE for me. And basically, what I mean by that is if I'm looking for really sweaty fights, really challenging fights, I just go up to the districts because you know right where to find those and just capture any district. And usually, whoever's on a fight will come to you. And if it's one of those more chill nights where you want some PvP, but you also want to make money, or you're testing a build, or leveling abilities, or you're not trying to get too sweaty, then you can run the sewers. And then there's this kind of middle ground where you could hunt players in the sewers, and the likelihood that they're going to be a really solid PvPer is a little bit lower. They're probably a PvEer that's farming Telvar and or leveling their character. And so you kind of there's levels to it, right? And depending on where you're at with the day and what you're looking for, that's what I really like about it. It's got a perfect blend of PvP and PvE.
I can totally agree to that, especially since when I started the game, I was mostly I could swear I'm only PvE. You'll never catch me doing PvP. And then since we met, now I've kind of almost not fully gone PvP, but I do enjoy PvP now. And being in the sewers, especially with those, it's very feast or famine. On those days where it be famine, it's just a whole, for 1 hour you're just straight PvE, you know, and just like killing mobs, collecting all that money and stuff. And it's a nice it's a nice balance that that kind of just rewards itself. And there's something. I think when you cash in the Telvar, like after killing each mob, like the Kaching, is very rewarding. It kind of keeps me wanting to come back every time, just to slay the mobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's actually another one of my pluses to Imperial City, whether it be the sewers or the districts. It kind of appeals to this hunter gatherer type role. And you know you get 50% of the Telvar whenever you kill a enemy player. And so hunting down the enemy players and killing them and getting their Telvar is kind of cool. In the meantime, you could be killing mobs, PvE, and acquiring key fragments and just random drops and things like that. And so it just kind of really appeals to this hunter gatherer type situation. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and since you mentioned the key frags and stuff, I'll just segue that into my one of my favorite things is there's so many ways to make money in down in the sewers, whether it be say we do a run from EP base to middle, you're able to you're collecting gold. Okay, just us passively picking up stuff from the mobs, collecting key frags from the mobs. You're collecting Telvar from the mobs, and you're collecting, and they also drop ornates, and you also might get a motif every once in a while. So you've got 5 different um, methods of making yourself, financially better off. And God forbid, or Molag forbid, that you actually, come across an enemy player. Now you have an opportunity to make yourself even richer, or it's really a gamble because if you lose now, you're losing half your Telvar. But even at that point, you're still able to go back to base with everything else that you collected along the way. You know, yeah, it's a more direct. Um, I guess what's the phrase I'm looking for? I guess it's I guess with the Telvar you're kind of it's indirect gold because you gotta convert it to Kajos or whatever Telvar that you're using it to purchase, and then you just convert that to gold. But with the gold key frags, ornates, and the motifs and stuff, even though you lose half your Telvar, you're still gonna make out pretty well off from where you started.
Yeah. And so that's actually, I have both the level of experience that you get down there and the amount of money that you make are both of the big benefits to spending time down there. So I level all my characters down in Imperial City for the most part, outside of taking them into BGs, just to get vigor and to do whatever. But I level all my characters down there. So the EXP down there is underrated. A lot of people will go and they will just run Sky Reach over and over again or whatever grinding zone. And um, I forgot who it was, but one of the guildies was going to go do that for a character, and I was like, "Hey, you really should go to the sewers and grind down there. You can make a lot of money." Like I made 2 million gold down there in 7 days.
Hmm.
Leveling and doing the process that you were talking about, converting your Telvar to Hacky Joes, and the Hacky Joes were selling for 15 to 16K a piece at the time. So taking all your Telvar, converting it to Hacky Joes and selling those, and key fragments, a stack of key fragments right now, 200 key fragments are selling for 31,000 gold. And when you run when you find chests down there, the chests have a chance to have uh, Ebonheart pack motifs, or if you're Aldmeri Dominion or whatever, but it's got your specific factions motifs, and those sell anywhere from 2,000 gold to 9,000 gold. And then the ornates, I was running with a new guy, I just met him, and he'd actually knew about Grimsforge Gaming Channel. He had not seen the Imperial City guide that I have. So I was explaining to him about making money because he was just throwing away all of the whites,
Oh,
like
really?
just discarding. I was like, no, dude, look at the price on those. Some of them are as much as 288 gold a piece. And he was like, I didn't even look at that. And so he saved everything on one run and he made 10,000 gold just in ornates or intricates or whatever. The white trash that you normally just discard or don't even pick up. But he made
Hmm.
10K gold just on those. And then
And
I
when
was
and when you say discard,
explaining,
he was just like straight dropping it or like
yeah,
destroying it.
yeah,
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
destroying it. And so he was like, I literally just made 10K gold and garbage,
Hmm.
and I was like, and it was our second run. Our first run, we come back with like he came back with 5 or 6K. He had died a couple times to banners and stuff like that, but so he had 5 or 6K each time he come back. So he's like, I have 10K Telvar. And I was like, that's the equivalent of 2 Hacky Joe, which is
Hmm.
the equivalent of 30K gold.
Yeah.
You got 30K gold there. You got 10K gold from the intricates the trash that you just sold, and that's not counting these random potions that you pick up. If you sell those, you might make anywhere from 100 to 500 gold selling those to the merchant, and the poisons, these random poisons that you just pick up from mobs.
Hmm.
And I was like, there's so many other little things that you could be selling too. And then I asked him, how many key frags did you get? And he's like, 138. And I'm like, yeah, you're over halfway to, you basically have 15K gold there.
Yeah, yeah.
You're over halfway to 200 for one stack. And he's like, holy cow. And I'm like, and we did that in what, 30 minutes? In 30 minutes you have the equivalent of what, 60K gold. So
You make so much money. I mean, even now, I'm getting to the point where I'm leveling my tunes down there, by myself when you're not around. And if I get a nice like quiet run and like I don't get stopped by any AD or DC, from just going from EP base down to Molog, I wind up with like three to 4K Telvar, and you know X amount of gold.
mhm.
Between all the items that I collect. But even then, I go in with only 30 items in my inventory, and then I come out, with over 100. Just like
Yeah,
going, from taking my time, clearing all the rooms, just working my way down the center. Um, so
yeah,
like you said, it's really underrated. Leveling and also making money down there.
yeah. Not only that, I didn't even mention deconning items. When you're picking up blue and purple items and deconning those, because I'm an ESO plus member, that decon materials goes to my crafting bag, right? But if
Hmm.
you're not an ESO plus member, it'd be way easier to kind of gauge the amount of materials that you have coming in just from deconning the stuff that you're not selling to the vendors. And that's something I didn't even take into account. Who knows, what dollar amount that would equate to.
Right. Yeah, I do. I know I do save the intricates if I need them for my other characters, because even just being down in the sewers, that's another way to, farm intricates as well. And also, if you're trying to level up the enchanting skill line, you'll get a ton of glyphs. Just the more time you spend down there. So I've already leveled maybe one, if not two characters just from all the glyphs I collect being down there. So it's pretty wild. Um,
Yeah.
just all the crazy stuff that you can with all the the garbage that you collect from being down in the sewers, like what you can do with it all. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Who would have
Um,
thought who would have thought you'd be saying that, You can't
yeah,
believe how much money I make running around inside the sewers and selling stuff.
yeah, yeah. I feel like I want to say something funny, like another person's trash
It's,
is more money for me.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, um, I had the last one. So, what's next on your list?
Um, I like the confined areas of the sewers and the districts. Both are different, right? Sewers and how they feel as opposed to how the districts feel. But I like the confined areas
Hmm.
of both of those, and the interesting strategic movement that it leads to. It's way different than Cyrodiil. I like Cyrodiil as well when it's working properly, but um, open field fights in Cyrodiil and group versus group and taking keeps and things like that. It's just a different play style, and I think there's a place for that for sure too. I enjoy that, but I really like the small group PvP situation. Like when I say small group, there's been a lot of times where there's been two or three of us. It's you, me, and one other person, or just you and me, and we're fighting 10 or 20 people.
Hmm.
And the only way we can make that happen is utilizing the sewers and utilizing the buildings up in the districts and kiting them out, stretching them out, establishing the tail, catching one of them separated from the group, and slowly dispatching them, you know.
Hmm.
um and you can't stand in front of 10 people on most builds and just face tank them and kill them all. Like it just doesn't really work that way unless they're PvEers, and
Yeah.
even then you still have to be careful. So the confined areas of the sewers and the districts and the strategic um, situations it's put us in. That's a lot of fun. Like, I really enjoy that.
Yeah, and I know because even like say like if you're kiting around something, Cyrodiil, you can work with the those tower fights, right? Just going up the stairs and dropping back down and just kind of repeating that a bunch of times. And in Imperial City, you can do the same thing essentially. Go up the stairs, run across the room, drop down through one of the holes, or run around the building and just keep doing that again, until somebody gets tired or like you can eventually get a kill or something like that. And then in the sewers, it's man, it's different, because there's not so much a I guess XY. I guess there's not so much up and down, but just like just utilizing the corridors, hugging the tight corners, because you could turn a corner and just like tuck yourself in, like on a little ledge, and they'll just swing right by, and then they're just like, oh, where'd he go? He must be cheating or something, Did he pop an invis pot? No, he just kind of, you're hiding in the divot there, crouched or not, um, because it's like the nooks and crannies make it like pretty awesome to work with. Um,
Yeah. It provides that line of sight that you need when fighting outnumbered, or it funnels everyone like the movie 300. It funnels
yes.
everybody into a smaller area to where their numbers mean a little less. And that's just very interesting for me. I like that. Um, if you were to take us out to Cyrodiil and have 2 people versus 20 people open field, we're probably going to get killed because the resource strain that it's going to cause us. We're going to need to find some type of surroundings, some type of rocks, or some type of line of sight to get some type of reprieve, some type of um, little gap in the incoming damage. So that way our recoveries could take effect. And then at some point, how do you turn the corner of the fight? It's much easier to turn the corner in the small confines of the sewers or the districts and actually start trying to chop them down, whereas up in Cyrodiil open world it's harder to do that. You spend more time kiting and less time chopping in a lot of cases. So
hmm
that's been my experience. So
And it's also interesting, like when we do happen upon like the big groups, and then like they start to give us chase, and then we'll funnel back through a corridor, and then they'll stop, you know, because they're like, nope, we're not going in there. But
yeah.
then they after like a couple like tugs back and forth, some guys will just get impatient and follow us in, and then when they do, half the team is still in disagreement. So now, okay, we got what we wanted. We got the 2-on-2 or the 2-on-3. Uh, we take them out, and now they're dead, pissed off, and and now the rest of the group, they're a little bit more manageable. In the Molag, the center, which I guess is kind of open field. There's not too much you can work with there, but even just like tricks like that, using um, the 300s, funneling method to bring them all in with and work on what were you saying, chopping at the bit.
Yeah,
Um,
chop the tree. And
yeah.
that same scenario doesn't work as effectively in an open field. If you took 20 people out in Cyrodiil open field moving around as a unit, it's harder to establish the tail. There's no when we're talking about line of sight, the line of sight is a positive and a negative, in that it's a positive for us because it breaks line of sight. It could be a negative for them because it breaks line of sight. And now the healer doesn't have line of sight to the 2 people that are at the front or at the back, that are getting killed. And so that scenario, in that moment, we have a chance to kill those groups. We just simply need to get them to move off of their spot, like move out of the room that they're in and start moving away from us, or move towards us, one or the other.
hmm
Just move. Don't just be balled up in a single room. And in open world Cyrodiil, that's much harder. There's no line of sight preventing the healers from hitting everybody in the ball group. Meanwhile, everybody in the ball group's just spamming AoEs or whatever. And so, yeah, so I don't like facing that scenario, outnumbered 1v1 or or 1vx or 2vx, 3vx, because you're set up to lose that scenario open world. But so anyways, yeah, that's super exciting. I really like those opportunities when they present themselves.
And right before I move on to the next one, same thing we were saying with the healers. Just even going in the corridors, not only like is that making it harder for like the enemy healers, now it's also a form of damage mitigation for ourselves, because now the guys who are ranged, who are trying to poke us, they can't. You got to be up close now. You got to get down and dirty to have some sort of impact on us. So um, just wanted to throw that piece in there.
Yeah, peeling for each other works a lot better with that line of sight too. And
Yeah.
what I
Yep.
mean, like the front line of the phalanx switching with the second line, to give them a break or give them a reprieve. That works a lot easier when you're using line of sight to make those changes.
Hmm.
Um, a guy's pursuing you, they're putting a lot of pressure into you. You come around the corner where I'm waiting. I drop a heavy attack Dawnbreaker, stuns the guys. You're now behind me. And then I push into the group and start giving them hell. And it gives you the breather you need to get back in the fight just in time for me to be ready for a reprieve. And
Right.
that allows two people to maintain pressure on much larger numbers of people. If you tried to recreate that in Cyrodiil, like you just both get mowed down. So you you just get zerged down.
Yeah.
And
It's not as cool.
yeah, it's not nearly as cool. It's like, now's our moment. Oh, never at respawn. So
But even then, if you take it from like the Spartan perspective, they would never fight in an open field.
no,
They pick their battles, and they know that they are about to 300 v x thousand, and what's their best shot? We got to fight in the sewers. You know.
yeah.
So I'm pretty sure Leonidas would join us. I think down in the sewers,
Oh,
because
for sure.
yeah, he's like, yeah, we're gonna win all our battles down here if we fight down here. Um, so my other favorite part, since we're talking about Cyrodiil, um, performance. I think I know. And when I say performance, I'm just talking in terms of, a lot of people complain about Cyrodiil just being, oh, there's so much latency, so much lag and stuff. Down in the sewers, there's not a lot of people down there, and then even when we do get those 2vx videos or whatever, it's enough people for the 2vx, but not enough to put a strain on the servers where it's causing so much of an issue. Of course, I know, Grim, that you're very vocal about that. Like, I can't bar swap, or I can't do this.
Mhm.
um, but in terms of that comparison between Cyrodiil and Sewers, just there's just not a lot of bodies present. I just like the improved performance in that respect, because for me, I'd much rather die to somebody who's better than me and my stuff is working as it should be, instead of like, Dawnbreaker, hello, like,
Yeah,
why isn't my stuff going off? And oh, I died 10 minutes ago. Great.
yeah, um, yeah. Sarah, one of the things we were talking about kiting around. There's so many ways to take this part.
Hmm.
When we're talking about being in a tower out in Cyrodiil and you're doing your 2vx or 1vx situation out there, I was just watching a video. Somebody put a kind of like a compilation together, or a montage of other streamers or content creators, and like just weird stuff in Cyrodiil happening to them, like
Is it what I
fall.
think you're thinking of?
Yeah, it
Okay,
was
okay.
hilarious, right? And one dude got killed and is flying through the air over all of Cyrodiil as just a pile of ash. I'm like,
Oh,
and
I saw that. I was freaking laughing so hard.
oh yeah, and another dude was like, I can't use any abilities. I can't use any abilities, and his his action bar, his ability bars are completely blacked out. Like he can't pick any abilities, he can't hit any potions, and he's like 1vxing right now. And he gets killed, and it's just like another guy is 1vxing, and then it's just a load screen, and he just stops and he's looking at the screen, and then he just rolls his eyes and he just looks away, and then the screen comes back on and he's dead, and then he just calmly looks at the screen. And so the load screens out there, just these random load screens, are annoying as can be. You don't even have to be in combat. To we're out in the middle of nowhere, riding, and every 5 steps there's a load screen. And so we don't run into that stuff in Imperial City, even during Mid-Year Mayhem. And I don't know what numbers they're operating off of, like what the total occupancy or whatever you want to call it, how many people there are
Yeah.
in a district or whatever. But it's good where it's at. And I'm not saying that the sewers are without fault or without issue, because I do run into times where I can't bar swap, and I run into times where I can't use abilities. They're few and far between, and I think that's makes me mad, because we've got a fight that we want, and then that happens.
Right.
Non-performance makes me mad. Like, I don't, like you said, I don't mind being killed by good play. I don't like being killed because I can't break free of a CC and I have 100% stamina. I don't
Yeah.
like getting killed because I can't switch to my back bar to actually heal myself. And so that really upsets me. And I'm an ESO Plus member, and I've been an ESO Plus member since the game came out. And it just frustrates me that, what are you guys doing with the money that we're paying? We need performance of this game. You got a beautiful looking game, and you have really dynamic PvP when it works, and we just need it to work. And so that's kind of a frustrating part of it. But even for the times that I'm vocal about it, it's few and far between in Imperial City. And it happens all the time in Cyrodiil. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and
like when you're holding block and a take flight goes through it, and then you're like, "What the hell?" And the guy just responds, "Yeah, it's a lot of damage, my guy."
that's a lot of damage, my guy. Right. Yep,
Oh
happens
Lord.
all the time. Yeah, the DK dunk is real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things I have on here, it says it's much easier to find sites that I'm looking for compared to Cyrodiil 2.
Yeah.
So obviously you can look at the map when you're in Cyrodiil and you can see where the action's at, and then you can go there. But there's no guarantee that the fight, like you could get there and it could be 2 ball groups running around, and if there's 2 of you, the chances are you're going to get zerged down,
Mm-hmm.
and here you wasted how much time riding out there just to get zerged down. And so that's just frustrating. Whereas in Imperial City, like I said earlier, there's levels to it. And so if we're a very chill, we just want to farm some Telvar, have a couple PvP encounters, we'll usually hang to the sewers, and we're fine with that. If we want to get a little bit more sweaty, and really stomp some people, we're going to go up to the districts, and if we want to hunt people, we jump on our night blades and just run past all mobs and looking for players right now, and we're going to gank them or kill them. And it's much easier to get that. And mostly I think it's because of the confines of, when you look at the total size of Imperial City and the districts compared to this huge open world Cyrodiil,
Mm-hmm.
and not knowing what fights are waiting on the other end. Now, that said, there's been times where it gets the heart going, right? When we get to the middle and there's a DC group of 20 there.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. let's see if we can bait them into the sewers where their numbers don't mean anything and start chopping them down. Let it's really exciting, and it's really hard to get that type of scenario in Cyrodiil. So
Yeah, and even in those Zerg encounters, there are moments where we mess up,
mhm.
and it's your dodge roll straight into a wheelbarrow, and all of a sudden you can't get out. And now the Zerg just runs you down, and I'm like, well, there goes the cool video. Or you bump into the Zerg, you start running the other way, and you try to jump over a half-inch ledge, and you can't.
Why I
So
don't understand, because this totally happened to you. Why
yeah,
didn't you just, as the Zerg's rolling up behind you and you're stuck in the wheelbarrow, why didn't you just say, "Hey, my guy, could you give me a push?"
yeah, I should have just threw out the white flag emote and be like, hold on, let's reset the fight.
Yeah.
Um, did I have rewind? No, I wasn't running rewind on that one.
Oh, that would have got you out of it.
That would have got me out. Um, lessons learned. But even then, like when you do die, it's not like a freaking 10-minute ride out. Back
Yeah.
to get your revenge because you're pissed off. Just running from base to center. EP base to center, and you're popping your major expedition. It takes you 3 minutes if you run
Yeah.
straight through everything. Now 3 minutes. Everyone's still fighting, the three portals and then Molag Bal. Plenty of time to get back and then die again because you're pissed off and you're not thinking clearly. So
Yeah.
and then even then you got another 3 minutes to get back and try again. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's much more manageable for those types of things too. When you when
Yeah.
you when you when you get the wrong end of the deal for that moment.
Yeah. And when you're creating builds too and stuff, and you want to test a build in like a PvP environment, I think it's easier to test the build in Imperial City and the districts because of the levels to it, like we
Hmm.
were talking. Um, you're not going to get much testing out of a build if you ride 5-10 minutes to a keep, and then you get zerged down, or you get caught open field, an 80 group of 20 is riding through, and then they zerg you down. Next thing you know, you're 45 minutes in and you haven't really got to test the build, in a controlled situation. And I think you can definitely do that in the sewers. You have a new build, you're not quite sure, if the abilities are at where that you want them to be, or, should I add this one, take this one away? Well, let's take it out and take it for a little bit of a spin, but where there's not a whole lot on the right.
Hmm.
And we spend most of our time in Imperial City, CP Imperial City. So that gives us a chance to see and feel what the build feels like with champion points. And if we wanted to take a build out for a stroll or a test, no CP, we would do BGs, right? And
Hmm.
so I think that for me, like content creating and building, doing builds and testing those builds, it's much easier to do that in the sewers and in the districts.
Yeah. Um, I wonder if because I know with my support healer builds, they usually translate over to Cyrodiil, but I wonder if like if I made a build for Cyrodiil, would it translate over to Imperial Sewers? I feel like it wouldn't because all the builds I create, it's for fighting down the sewers. You know, like why
Yeah.
I put race against time on my bar, why I put whatever ability on my bar. It's all just from the PvP battle experience down in the sewers. It's whatever situation that we run into, if we lose that encounter, all right, back to the drawing board. How can I better prep for that encounter? What would I need to change in my build that would still make me viable to do everything else I'm doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. It's not that it's a bad build, it's a build built specifically for, a 10-foot by 10-foot room
Hmm.
instead of a 100-foot by 100-foot space,
Yeah.
right? And when you're building a build that wants to hug the corners and peel or slow people down, apply debuffs and stuff, and it just functions way differently in a 10-foot by 10-foot corridor of the sewers or in a building up in the districts as opposed to just open field, or in front of a keep. So,
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think, did you have the last one? I think, or was that me with the performance? Oh, that was me.
yes,
Uh,
I have, I like
okay.
the
Yeah, you're next. You're
PvP.
next.
I like the PvP VE, so the player versus environment
Oh, okay.
situation.
Yeah, that kind of that'll segue into mine too. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The PvP VE, player versus environment, and um, the exciting scenarios that creates. And there's a couple stories that come to mind. One of them being I was leveling I was leveling my Stan Lee character, and I went to the center of the sewers. I pulled all three portals for Moloch Ball, and I was soloing it. And a DC player rolled up and tried to kill me while I was doing that. And for me, like, I felt completely fine fighting all that chaos, fighting in the middle of all that chaos on the build.
Do you remember
Um,
what type of banners they were?
I know at least one of them was a double banner, like an ice banner, and there was no two-hander. There was no two-hander. One of them might have been a night blade. I feel
Oof.
like the other one was a double banner fire. So there was a
Oh,
double
okay.
banner fire, a double banner ice, and then
So two
a
AoE
night blade.
banners and a single target.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so I felt fine standing, like I could face tank it, all that. And he came up and tried to kill me in the middle of all that. And between what I was doing to him and what the banners were doing to him, he ended up dying. And he came back to, I had
Just
people
watch the second time.
just to watch. I had actually people watching, and he came back and tried killing them, and he got killed. And so then he messaged one of them and he's like, "What in the hell are you guys doing?" And they're like, "We're watching, Grim solo Moloch Ball and all three portals, on a level 30." And so, anyways, that scenario was really cool. I remember that. And then I remember you on DC side, and I was on Blackbeard testing a build. I just
Hmm.
put it together, wasn't really sure if I was solid with where things were at or what it could do. And I forgot who you were on. Do you
Uh,
remember?
yeah, I was on Volga, the Argonian healer,
Yeah.
but it wasn't with the build I had today. It was like my one of my earlier experiments I was working on.
Yeah. And so Blackbeard is a magic DK that I was on, and I was running a very tanky yet bursty magic DK because I had the vampire ultimate and I could burst people down when I went into that. But we're over on DC side and we run into a group. I don't even remember how many it was. And
I think it was like four
at,
or five.
there was like four or five.
Yeah,
And at some point, didn't we aggro a double banner? And so we're fighting the double banner and the DC, and the DC's getting killed. The banner's helping kill the DC,
yeah,
and then Icy and I decide let's keep the banner alive and let's just stay here and keep killing the DC.
yeah,
And so we keep the banner alive and just stay there. And the DC kept coming back because we're not too far from their base down in the sewers. And we had a steady stream of DC running back in and getting killed. Well, then one of them decided they were going to bring a double banner to the party also. And so now it's Icy and I 2 double banners and 5 DC, and the DC are just getting their faces stomped in, and we're laughing so hard because it's like not our first rodeo having 2 double banners, having
Hmm.
to deal with 2 double banners who were aggroed on us, by the way.
Oh yeah,
And
and it was
so
the I'm pretty sure it was the Necro banner and the Fire banner, which are
yeah,
like that's a combo like you don't want because the last thing
yeah.
you need is like the Necro to pull you in right when the
Hmm.
Fire guy throws the his AOE on the ground. Like
Yeah,
that's a lot of damage. That's a lot of
yeah,
damage, my guy.
yeah. That's a lot of damage, my guy. And it was just the funniest scenario, right? The
Hmm.
funniest ball of chaos. And it was a perfect example of why I like PvP VE, player versus environment. And I I have a feeling that that was their. They might spend time in the sewers, but that was their first time in that scenario, and it definitely was not our first rodeo.
Yeah, it definitely it's like okay, we're in a fight. All right, now I'm gonna throw a wrench in here. I'm gonna throw a couple more wrenches in there. Now juggle all these things while we're in a like a regular one-on-one whatever. And I like that mix a lot because and sometimes if the 1v1's a stalemate, you need that extra element to turn the tides in whoever's favor. Because
Yeah,
otherwise it'll just be a draw, and then you'll go your separate ways. But
yeah,
sometimes the banners, if you know how to use them right, they're gonna help you more than they hurt you.
yeah. And even though it's the districts or it's the sewers, this is not a duel. If you run into a 1v1 situation, this is not a duel. This is a PvP VE, player versus environment.
Hmm.
And if you can utilize the environment to kill that person, you know, do it. Like that is flexing your understanding of the situation and the scenario that you're in, the position that you're in. That's not copying at, you know, copping out or, you know, finding an out to the fight. Like this is still considered an open world environment or player, PvP environment.
Hmm.
And there are mobs running around. And if you can't fight a player and fight mobs at the same time, then go to Cyrodiil.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, you're still going to get that scenario in Cyrodiil, though, to be honest, at the resources and defending resources, taking resources. So, but yeah, I mean, that was just a lot of fun, and those scenarios are a lot of fun. I was running along with someone else too, and we had 2 double banners with us, and then there was a DC Nightblade that was trying to. I was on Spartan, my Magplar, and at the time this was like Magplar, the height of their
Rain.
effectiveness. Yeah, their reign. And so he was really strong at that time. And this guy was trying to gank me while I had aggro both double banners. And it was laughable because like he could not gank me. And he was trying so hard he ended up like getting desperate and he ended up getting killed by the banners,
Jesus.
and it was just a funny scenario. And it was that other guy that I was running, was his first situation like that, a PvP VE, player versus environment scenario. And it was just like, dude, that was intense. And I was like, yeah, it was pretty fun.
I honestly say it's probably more fair down in the sewers than in Cyrodiil because you know in the sewers it's just Daedra. They're not on anybody's side. And then if you go to like a resource camp, well, now you're fighting me and my my NPC allies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's an interesting point. Um,
What about the delves? Can you fight in the delves? Like, can you encounter like other factions and fight them in the delves?
Oh yeah. When you enter the delves and say you're going there to get your AP buff, you could run into other PvEers, other PvPers while they're in there.
Okay.
So yeah. I mean, I've had some good scenarios where I've ran up on 5 people and chop through all 5. I've had some very bad scenarios where an entire a ball group of 20 people decide that delves where they're going to go to get their AP buff, and I'm coming back up to the exit just, as these guys are coming in, and, a fight for your life and running through this
I'm like,
delve.
please ignore me. Don't see me. Just let me walk by.
Oh yeah, no, they're trying to get your AP and their AP buff all at once. So,
Mhm.
but
Let's see. Let's see. The banner fights. Oh, so I guess just continuing off the banners. So the banners are, one of my favorite parts, just like the banners themselves, because if you've never, if you're coming from PVE setting, doing all the Elder Scroll content up top, and then you come and fight a banner, they're almost like a world boss, or I guess you could equate them equivalent to a world boss, but like I know when I first went down there, when you're fighting up in normal Cyrodiil, Tamriel worlds, you can just ignore all of the red stuff, right? The fire on the ground when they hit you
yeah,
and stuff
the
like that,
mechanics.
the regular mechanics. Yeah, you can just ignore them flat out. But once you come down here, you learn. I can't even say pretty quickly because it was still hard for me in the beginning to, um, you know, you gotta step out the fire. You gotta block. You gotta do this. You gotta dodge roll. You can't take these hits because if you're one, you gotta have a self heal if you're by yourself, whatever. Not even by yourself. Even if you have a healer on the team, grab a self heal. And two, like the important part, if you want to beat the banners, you gotta know the mechanic. You gotta respect the mechanics. I think that's the
Yeah,
the best way to put it because um, you're gonna learn real quickly that I mean I know the guild that we're in. A lot of people they don't like coming down there because of the banners. Because
yeah,
they're too tough, and it kind of just it makes you think like what you've been doing the whole time, just sleeping.
yeah.
you know.
That's a perfect scenario that you brought up. Is we go down there with certain people, and I think there's a little bit of fear of the PvP aspect of it. As it turns out, it's not even the PvP aspect that becomes the most fearful thing down there, right? They're
Hmm.
running into banners and getting killed by banners and stuff, and not learning the mechanics of the each individual banner, and the mechanics for the banners change too, to a degree. So double banners, like if it's a fire double banner, one ability that you can almost guarantee he's going to do is hold his staff in the air, and he's going to do an AOE explosion around himself, and then immediately after that, right under each character that's in the room that he's fighting, an AOE explosion under them. And as long as you're strafing or moving, that explosion will miss you. If you're a melee fighter that's on the banner fighting him, you'll back away from the AOE explosion that he does around himself, and then you'll move back towards him out of the AOE explosion that he had placed under you. And that's how simple it is to avoid that. But most people need to stand and stand and fire, right? Or
Hmm.
they're just simply not moving or getting out of bed, and that's interesting to see that. And
Yeah, because I
if
think they're mostly used to standing in one spot and doing their full DPS rotation, but you can't do that down here because now you have to DPS with a PvP build.
yeah,
And that's a
which is
totally
way
different
different.
thing. Yeah, way
Yeah,
way different, way less DPS than what you normally can do.
yeah, much different. And some of the roles are eliminated too, right? You're a DPS in a PvP environment, but you need to be more than just a DPS in a PvE environment down in the sewers or the districts, um, because you don't have a designated tank. You might not have a designated healer, and even if you do have a tank run of 30 or 40k health tank running around with you with taunt, a lot of the banners are taunt immune, you know,
Yeah,
or
depending
they
on what action they're doing.
Exactly. And then they'll just randomly run it whoever. And in that moment, you have to know how to react. And so that's interesting. That whole scenario is unfolding for them, and they're realizing they are not prepared. And then
Hmm.
a DC Nightblade or AD, Stamplar kicks in the door and starts killing people or trying to kill people, or a group of 10 DC that are coming to get sky shards roll up on us, and now they were struggling with the banner. How are they going to handle this group that's coming in? So
Right. And I think for um, at least the double banners, I think there's I think maybe 3 or 4 abilities. Because I know like the fire one, they all share like the second ability, but they're only used, depending on what which banner, depending on each banner, they'll have one of that like 4 abilities. That obviously it's random, but like say like the ice one could I mean it can I know they all can't do ice, but like one they'll have like the shield that reflects, or
hmm
they'll do like the slow channel to heal himself up. They'll do the the I'm gonna suck you off ability.
yeah,
I think the necro can do like he's got his necro AoE on the ground, but then like the other banners can do that as well. So that guy could also do double necro AoE on the floor, so there's just like a lot of AoE covering the whole thing.
yeah.
Um,
And then he
but
turns around and yanks,
and then he pulls you in. Oh my
change you
god!
in, and then explodes, and then he summons an ad, and the ad can stun you with a heavy attack, and
Oh, the
then you
flesh
have,
atronach.
yeah, oh yeah, if it winds up a heavy attack and hits you, it'll stun you.
Oh, okay.
So,
I
and then
learned something new today.
yeah, and then they all have the ability to summon vampiric totems,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, that's another mechanic too. Yep.
the vampiric totems need to be killed or the banners heal. And so while all this random but not random, you end up recognizing what mechanics this boss brings to the table as they unfold. And then how many times have we seen a two-hander and people not know the mechanics of that when he enrages and takes you away and starts spin cleaving, like, don't try and tank it, just get away,
Yeah.
just kite him, and don't kite him through other players, right? Because he'll chop them to ribbons as he's pursuing whoever he's got aggro on. how
Right.
many how many people have we seen die because of that?
Yeah.
So
I think my favorite part was when I called it. I think we had like some lobby guy or some new guy, and I was like, how much you want to bet he's gonna the banner's gonna suck this guy off, and he's not gonna have any stamina to break free.
yeah, yeah. so
Oh, I'm bad. I'm bad.
so icy's that ability is basically the boss does a tether to you that stuns you, and until you break free of it, it's draining your health, draining your resources, your magic and stamina, and it'll literally just drain you completely dry and kill you if you don't break it. And the problem is your dodge rolling out of like this necrotic slow on the ground, ice on the ground, dodge rolling out of the way of these attacks that are coming, and then the boss is yanking you with chains in, and you're having to break free of that stun and dodge roll or get away from the boss before they one shot you. And then the next thing they do is apply this tether to you, 6 seconds later, and your stamina's burned.
Hmm.
And so being smart enough to channel heavy attacks where and when you can, to return stamina. Now, if you're a Magica character, and you have terrible stamina recovery, and you're not running tripods, you're only running, you know, major sorcery or just basic Magica pots, you're being cheap or whatever, or you don't know any better. You have no way to refund or return that stamina to you, and you're going to die every time. And then you're going to get frustrated and be like, Imperial City Sewers is stupid. I can't save up Telvar. Every time I get to like 7K Telvar, I get killed. And the only reason I'm walking around with 7K Telvar is because I don't realize that I can bank my Telvar. And,
Hmm.
so they're running around with all the Telvar on and just dying over again. And, then they end up just having like 500 Telvar on them at any given time before their next death. So,
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, you can't even be mad. Like you got that much, you're by yourself. Like for me,
right,
my number one rule is never fight fair.
right,
If if it's a 1v1, I know I'm not the greatest duelist or whatever. I mean, I wouldn't even. Don't even put duelist in my name. I will always fight with somebody because I have the better advantage that way. You know, and
right.
then it reminds me that like that day, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, we killed that guy, that DK, that was I think he was fighting like two banners or something in middle,
Mhm.
and we smoked him. We got like freaking 3K each off the guy, and then uh you know we clean up the banners, we go back to base, call it quits, and then I see the guy, he had switched from DC to EP. I was like, oh, hey, was that you? And then he just went off in a tirade, all pissed off and stuff, how I ruined his day. He can't meet his guild numbers and everything. I'm like, all right, bro, calm down. You kind of, you should have seen it coming. What do you expect? You're in a PvP zone,
Yeah.
That's the risk you take.
Yeah. You stepped foot in a PvP zone, and you're gonna run off by yourself and try and solo banners and solo things. Like, you have to expect that at some point you're going to run into another player. So
And you better be ready because it'll
yeah,
happen. It'll happen when you don't want it to happen.
yeah, yeah. I
So
don't know. It's not that I hate on Cyrodiil. I like Cyrodiil. I like for what it is. I can tell you my first experience in Cyrodiil was, it was just
are you going to say awesome or awful?
it was awesome. It
Okay.
was like, mouth gaping open, like, holy crap, this is freaking amazing.
Hmm.
Like, you've got 20 people sieging a castle, and, you know, you've got 40 people shooting off the castle wall, and people coming around the castle trying to flank the people on the siege. And, it was just an absolute um, battlefield, you know?
Hmm.
It's just a different type of PvP. And I really, the game ran a lot better then. We didn't have any of the problems then that we do now. Um, Maybe a little bit of lag from time to time, but there was never the random load screens or bar swapping problems, or um, yeah, there weren't near the problems that there are now. But for what it was amazing. Like, it's just a different form of PvP. And I like the sewers better and what they bring as far as outnumbered fights go, and then the levels. If I want to be a chill knight, it can be a chill knight. I still get my PvP, but I also make money and farm. So
Absolutely. Amen to that. Sewer rat for life.
yeah, yeah.
um, my list is pretty much covered. Are we missing anything on yours?
No, we got everything on mine too. Yeah.
Cool. So I think with that we could call it. We I think we could close up here. Do you want to close us out with a teaser for next week's podcast? Next
Yeah.
week's episode.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode. And if you guys tune in next week, we are actually going to go into who we are outside of the game, and then how that affects who we are inside the game and what that brings to the table. As just a quick teaser, Icy is an engineer, and I train professional athletes in combat sports. And so, anyways, next week we're going to go into who we are outside of the game and what that brings to us inside the game.
And with that, have a good night, everybody.
Take care. You're going to say bye bye, Argonians.
Bye bye, Ragonian.